Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Pane. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. Hey everyone, it's Joe here and welcome to episode 52. Thank you so much for joining me once again. As at the time of this recording, we're in the middle of November 2020, and what a year it has been for many, many obvious reasons. I was just reflecting this morning how I've spent so many hours in this room where I'm actually broadcasting this podcast from, which is the study in my house. It accumulated in here just over 240 hours of Zoom sessions across 17 or 16 different companies, 14 different industries. It's been amazing, like incredible. And I never would have thought in my wildest imaginations that I would be delivering workshops from my study. So it's been amazing, and I'm grateful for it very, very much. I hope you're all doing as well as can be. And today's episode, I call this, simply what I'm going to be focusing on is how fear is the domain of the ego and how love is the domain of our soul. And I want to explore that thought with you a little bit more in this episode. Just very quickly, just some basic housekeeping. A couple of you have reached out to me to ask me when the next free introduction to the behavioral profiling, the extended disc is. The next one is on February 11, February 12. So plenty of time there to book in. That's the obviously in 2021. I can't believe I'm even saying the words 2021. It's incredible. And this is the final year of my children, my two sons, finishing primary school next door to our home here. So it's going to be fascinating to see how we feel when that comes to an official close. Anyway, enough about all that. Let's focus on today's topic. So fear is the domain of the ego. Love is the domain of our soul. So I believe that everything shows up in our lives so we can make a choice. I'll even go as far as to say that everything shows up in our life for a purpose. Everything in nature exists because it has some kind of purpose. And I believe that everything shows up in our lives for a purpose. And that purpose is so we can make a choice of who we want to be, a choice which moves us closer to love or closer to fear. Something that we need to really understand and be aware of is that fear is the domain of the ego and love is the domain of our soul. If we choose to react, we become a slave to our emotions. We become dominated by our ego. Fear becomes king of our psychological domain when that happens. And all anxiety and depression are extensions of fear. I realize that's a very strong statement. And with deepest of certainty, I know that's true. Our soul, on the other hand, our soul cannot become anxious. It cannot get depressed. Love is the existential domain of our soul. In every moment, we can choose. Our lives are filled on a daily level with many, many micro moments. It was literally just a few days ago with a friend of mine, I witnessed a micro moment. And I was standing on the corner of two streets and a big truck was turning a corner and had to stop mid-turn in order to give way to a pedestrian. The car behind the truck tooted in a very angry way to the truck. Other than being unnecessary, I had just witnessed a micro moment of fear. In that moment, the driver was reacting in fear. Her ego and emotions were in charge. We may well argue that the driver may have had genuine reason for being in a hurry, but no matter how genuine that reason is, we still have a choice. That choice in that micro moment for that driver potentially could set the tone for the rest of the day for that person. Now, with awareness, if we were the driver, and I'm completely aware that this is easier from the peanut gallery, we could choose to respond differently. We may choose to see in a heartbeat that whether we are frustrated or whether we remain patient in the faith that the truck has good reason to stop, we would be experiencing the same micro moment completely differently. And we actually get to move closer toward love. And that's what matters most. Ultimately, the move toward fear or a move toward love is like moving from the front of a big ship versus moving to the back of the big ship. We are still on the ship. What I mean by this is that perfect love, unconditional, pure white love, contains all the other emotions within it. The color of white light is white because it actually contains all of the combinations or the combinations of the three primary colors. The three primary colors combined together create the white light. Love is at one end of the emotional spectrum, and all of the other emotions are contained within it. And fear is at the end of the other end, the polar opposite end of the spectrum, but we're still talking about the same emotional ship. It's just it's a spectrum of range. And ultimately, the entire spectrum combines to become and create perfect love. The closer to perfect love, the more we express from our souls. The further away from love, the more distorted that love becomes. The bigger the distortion, the bigger the fear experience. Another way of expressing this is that everything shows up so we can progressively become more connected with our essence. Linguistically, the extension of essence is what becomes essential. Connecting with essence is therefore essential. To me, there's nothing more important than having, just to the best of my ability, to bring consciousness and bring awareness to every decision, every moment, every response, every reaction. So I can be responding from my essence rather than from some kind of scarcity-based egotistical response, if that makes any sense. What we need to be aware of is that the ego, and this is really important, guys, the ego has an insatiable thirst for more drama, more problems, more stuff, more of anything it can have more of. The soul has no needs. It has desires and preferences, and those desires and preferences are experienced for one purpose. That purpose is to simply experience. The soul allows the experience of desires and preferences. The ego tries to block. The ego is always trying to get somewhere and to get some more. It is a way to live that it's really hard. This is the core of the pure ambition-driven world, the egocentricity of it all. When we let go of the ego's motivation to get somewhere, this is replaced by an inspiration to become, an inspiration to allow love into being. Love doesn't need to be tried. It needs to be allowed. It's always there. It always has been there. We don't have to try for the sun to rise. It's allowed. The nature allows it. It has always been there. This is a journey of becoming what I call, as many of you have heard me say in the past, this is a journey of becoming a professional human being. When we realize that we don't need to get there or get here, we just need to allow it. Life becomes easier. We don't need to try to love. We just need to allow it. Fear, on the other hand, is manufactured by the ego. And that is something that requires energy, effort, and trying. Every moment is an opportunity to recreate yourself. I love that. Every moment is an opportunity to recreate yourself. It's an opportunity to move toward love or move toward fear, to move toward your heart or move toward your ego. Fear is a form of love, as I've said. In fact, fear is a form of love. It is a form of love. It's a distorted love, as I mentioned just a few moments ago. In fact, if you think of it that way, it's even more effective in terms of language. Is at the extreme end of the spectrum, the opposite end of the spectrum from perfect love, is a severely distorted version of love. Ego is louder than love. It has a lot to prove, a lot to defend, and a lot to protect. Love has nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to protect. Life is less about discovery and more about deciding who we want to be. We can actually continually extend from where we are. We are surrounded by change. I mean, there's been This year has been change on crack. I mean, for many obvious reasons. And there's two ways of viewing change. Change is either grieving over what is no more, or being curious about what is about to start, being curious about what new beginnings, new openings, new experiences change will bring. So be aware of what you notice about how you feel. Let me give an example of what I mean here. If you're noticing, so this is an example I want to share with you of how we can move from one end of the spectrum to the other with conscious awareness. It's very difficult to move from the extreme end of distorted love, like really full-on fear, to the perfection of love. That's really, for most of us in everyday life, that's impossible. It's very difficult to do. So we can move along the spectrum by moving along to a neighboring emotion that is progressively moving us toward love. So, for example, if you're noticing a feeling of disdain, which is quite a strong negative fear-based feeling, maybe you're noticing a theme of disdain in your life, or a hatred of some kind in your life for something or someone or something, right? It's extremely difficult, as I said, to jump from that to unconditional love. It's highly unlikely. However, it's possible to shift to its neighbor. It's possible to shift from disdain to frustration. From frustration, we can move to being annoyed. From being annoyed, we can move to being mildly peeved. From being mildly peeved, we can shift to tolerance. From tolerance, we can shift to indifference. From indifference, we can move to curiosity. From curiosity, we can embrace understanding. From understanding, we can learn to become patient. From patience, we can choose kindness. From kindness, there's an extension into compassion. From compassion grows empathy. And from compassion and empathy, the door opens to perfect love. I love that. It's a journey that simply just needs to be allowed. And I hope that last little bit there of just moving from one feeling to the neighboring feeling, to the neighboring feeling, and on to the neighboring feeling from that, we can move toward love. So next time you're noticing any kind of disdain or hatred, which is pretty strong, or whether it's frustration, just move closer to love. Move from frustration, just be a little bit annoyed about something. I mean, this is a choice. All of this is the choice. From being annoyed, maybe you're mildly peeved. I mean, if you ever said to yourself that you're feeling mildly peeved, it brings a smile to your face. It really does. And from being peeved, we can move to being tolerant. From tolerant, we can move to indifference, which is completely neutral. From indifference, we can move to curiosity, which is now becoming healthier. And from curiosity to understanding. Understanding to patience, patience to kindness, kindness to compassion, compassion to empathy, and then to love. So I hope that this insight this week has been of some kind of value to you. And that's what I wanted to share with you this week. So I hope you enjoyed episode 52, bit of a shorter one this week. Trust all is as well as can be in your life. And I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you in episode 53. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll speak with you again very, very soon. And remember those 5-star reviews on Apple iTunes. I would really, really, really appreciate that. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon. Bye for now. I'm Joe Pane, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can now follow my insights on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.